I've gone back and forth on how to tell this story. I could shorten it, I could leave parts out, I could make it easier to read, but if I'm going to do this series, I want to do it honestly. So this is the long version, this is the raw version, and this is my story of my son, Credence. To fully understand this story and how it affected me, you have to understand the pregnancies that came before him. In 2010, I had my daughter, Marley. I was induced with her, no complications. She was literally perfect. She weighed 7 pounds, 2 ounces, 21 inches long, and was born on her due date. Everything went exactly how I thought pregnancy and childbirth were supposed to go. Then in 2014, I had my son, Ryder. I spent 5 weeks hospitalized with him, and to this day, doctors still never figured out exactly why my body was contracting and why I was losing so much blood during my pregnancy. They did every test imaginable and still never found any answers. So Ryder ended up being born at 29 weeks, weighing 3 pounds, 4 ounces, measuring 17 inches long. Because I had been in labor for so long, doctors had the time to give me steroids and everything else needed to help develop his lungs and brain development. Whenever he was born, there were about 20 doctors and nurses in the room, ready for every possible scenario. Thankfully, he had stayed in long enough that he never had to go to the NICU. He went straight to special care nursery at Barnes Jewish Hospital in St. Louis, where he spent 50 days just because he was having heart rate drops. If you've ever been a NICU, PICU, special care nursery mom, then you understand there are some things that you just don't see anywhere else in there. That experience changed me. It gave me a completely different perspective on pregnancy and childbirth and how it wasn't all just sunshines and rainbows. And if there's one thing that you'll learn throughout this series, it's that whenever I tell you I've lived through some very unusual situations, I'm not exaggerating. Most situations some people might deal with once in their life. I have dealt with all of them. So in 2021, I got pregnant with my son, Credence. Everything seemed fine until my 12-week appointment. Normally I had people with me, but I was alone that day at my doctor's visit, and I had never seen this doctor before. He wasn't exactly known for his bedside manner either. He started the ultrasound and then didn't say a word. Not one. Just got up, left the room, left the light off, and then disappeared for what seemed like forever. I just laid there in the dark room with ultrasound gel all over me, wondering what in the world was happening. When he finally decided to come back in, he still left the light off, but he told me that I could wipe off. He sat me up and said, "We noticed fluid around the baby. Honestly, I don't know what to tell you. Something is wrong though, but it could mean a lot of things, so I'm just going to refer you to a specialist in St. Louis that can give you more answers." That was it. No answers, no explanation, just fear. I remember thinking that he had shattered my entire world and then handed me off to become someone else's problem. So a few days later, I finally met with a specialist in Shiloh, and he was absolutely incredible. I told him, "Hey, in all honesty, I don't know all the technical terms that you're going to tell me, and I don't want anything sugar-coated, so just tell me the truth. Tell me the chances, tell me what life could look like if he makes it, etc." And he did. And my son had approximately a 20% chance of survival at this point. And if he survived, it would be a very difficult road for him. He had cystic hygroma and fetal hydrops and severe clubbed feet, and every appointment seemed to bring more bad news. For most moms, pregnancy is filled with excitement over feeling those first little kicks. I remember that feeling with my other pregnancies. Waiting for that first flutter, the first kick, the reminders that your baby is there. But because of how severe his condition was, there wasn't much room for him to move, and I only felt him kick twice in 27 weeks. So I bought a fetal Doppler. I would sit at home and listen for his heartbeat. Every time I found it, I felt relief. Every time I found it, I knew he was still fighting. I wasn't prepared for what life would look like if he survived. I didn't really care. I knew I couldn't give up on him while he was still fighting as hard as he was. Most babies with conditions this severe don't make it past around 20 weeks, but he kept fighting, so I kept fighting too. Now here's where things get weird. The number 27 has always been my bad luck number, literally always. I was 27 weeks pregnant when I had an appointment in St. Louis to discuss a birthing plan. That morning, my dog would not leave my side. She even literally almost knocked me down going out the door to try and jump into my car to go with me. Anyone that knew her knew that that's very abnormal behavior for her. But she knew. I truly believe that she knew. When we got to the hospital, I looked at the ultrasound screen and I instantly knew. His heart had stopped beating. I broke into a million pieces right there on the table. The specialist had already tried to prepare me. At my previous appointments, he had essentially told me that we were waiting for him to pass away. We had discussed what delivering a sleeping baby would look like, but I hadn't really listened, because deep down I had convinced myself that that wouldn't be our ending. But it was. Matt, my sister, and my mom had all come with me that day. They knew how I felt about the number 27. They knew that it was my 27-week appointment, and sure enough, it was the week that we lost him, on August 25th. The next question the doctor asked me sent me into a complete panic. Do you want to go home and wait for labor to happen naturally, or do you want us to send you to the hospital to be induced? Now, I know everybody's different, but I'm sure the look on my face was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, who even asks a question like that? I just remember thinking, people actually go home? Again, everyone is different, but I just couldn't do that. I couldn't go home knowing that he was gone. So they sent me to the hospital, and the nurses there were absolutely incredible. They do this every day, so they know how people are going to react, but I was completely lost, and they knew it. For the first time in months, the waiting was over. The questions were over, and I now knew what was coming, or at least I thought I did. I was totally calm, just sitting there having a conversation with my sister, and then I felt something weird. So I looked at the nurse and I said, I think I feel something down there. So the nurse took a look and said, yep, it's time to push. That's his feet. I completely lost it in that moment. I started panicking and crying, saying, no, I need a minute. I'm not ready. I've changed my mind. I don't want to do this. I'm not ready to see him. I'm not ready for it to be over. I wasn't ready, but I'm sure nobody ever is. A good friend of mine who's worked in the funeral industry for a long time gave me some advice that I'll never forget, and I'm so grateful that she did. She said, once he's here, don't let him go until you have to. Soak in every minute. She explained that once babies pass away, their bodies kind of deteriorate quicker than others. That reality totally terrified me. Before I delivered him, doctors had already drained nearly 2 liters of fluid from his body using a needle that seemed impossibly long. Even that in itself was an experience that I'll never forget. When Credence was born on August 26th, 2022, they looked at him and asked if I wanted to put a hat on him. They told me that his head was pretty bad. I said no. I wanted all of him. The ugly, the bad, the beautiful. I just wanted to see my son. When they handed him to me, I can't even begin to explain what went through my mind, and I don't know if I ever will be able to describe my emotions in that moment. I try to be a pretty hard shell most of the time, but most of my family was there in the room with me, and it's definitely the most vulnerable I've ever been in front of them. And they all wanted to love on him too, and while it was hard for me to share him, I knew they needed those moments just as much as I did. A nurse also came in and told me about an organization called Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. They provide photographers who volunteer to take photographs of your baby who's passed away. At first, I thought it sounded really strange. Who wants pictures during moments like that? The nurse told me that a lot of parents say that. Then she told me that I would likely feel different one day and be happy to have them. And boy, was she right. Besides the pictures that my family took in the hospital, those photographs are all I have of him. And I am grateful for every single one. Eventually, the time had came that every parent in this situation dreads. I had to let him go. The hospital told me that they would take him to the morgue whenever I was finished holding him, and I just couldn't do that. So I called my friend Joni from the funeral home, who lived about 2 hours away, and told her that I thought it was time, and by the time she got there, I would be okay to let him go. Knowing he was going to be in her hands brought me comfort. I knew he would be cared for. I spent every second that I could with him before she arrived. It's hard to say exactly who he looked like. Honestly, he was just a beautiful mess, and I loved every single part of him. Now, I've had friends who have lost babies. I have friends who have lost toddlers, teenagers, and I know our experiences are different. I can tell you that I survived losing Credence, but all I had with him were hopes and dreams of a future. I love him more than I could ever put into words. I would have gone to the ends of the earth for him. But when I look at parents who have spent years making memories with their children and then lost them, I honestly don't know how they do it. If you're one of those parents and I haven't said it before, just know that I see you. I watch quietly. I don't want to overstep, but just know that I think you're superheroes. At the end of each story this week, I want to share what that loss has taught me. Credence taught me how to love myself. For a long time, I blamed myself. What did I do wrong? Was this my fault? Did I deserve another child? Is God trying to tell me that I'm a bad mother? I asked myself every question imaginable. But eventually I learned bad things happen to good people. And while we can't always control what happens to us, we can decide what we do with it. Credence showed me just how strong I really am. He showed me just how good of a mom I am. He taught me that regardless of our flaws, our imperfections, maybe our crooked feet, or the things that we don't like about ourselves, we are perfect in the eyes of the people who love us. Most of the things we criticize ourselves about are things that nobody else even notices. He taught me that it's okay to be vulnerable. Sharing his stories is one of the first times I ever publicly shared my fears, my pain, and the parts of myself that weren't strong. And through that, I learned something else. Sometimes people need to know they aren't alone. I know I do. I've read complete novels written by strangers on Facebook and found pieces of myself in them. I found comfort in their honesty and in their answers in their stories. Maybe this story will do the same for someone else. No matter how short a life is, it can leave a lasting impact. It can change who you are. It can change the way that you see the world. I am forever grateful that I got to be Credence's mom, even if just for a short time. I know that he is still with me, and I know that my mom and dad are taking care of him until I can. And until then, his siblings, his family, and I will continue to wonder what life would have looked like with him here. I've also learned we can get stuck in what could have been, because the truth is, we aren't always grieving a past. Sometimes we're grieving a future. The future we hoped for, the dreams we had, the plans we made. So enjoy the moments that you do have. Don't waste time on things that don't matter. Soak in every second. Be the good in someone's story. Leave your mark. Because no matter how long we're here, our impact can last forever. In his memory, we have a blood drive every year, which we've broken records at every one, and donate money to Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep and St. Jude. Like I've said, there's no right way to grieve. There's no wrong way to grieve. But if you find your purpose through the pain, I promise it helps.